Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Carla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about real people, real issues, and real talk. Hey there, Brandy Mock here, and we have such a special guest with us today, Kim Pittman, who is fabulously 50 years old, but she was diagnosed in 2017 with gastric cancer stage 3B. So, Kim, tell us a little bit about you, your story, how everything came to about, like what happened, what made you realize that something was going on with your body to where you needed to get checked out?
Well, I didn't really have anything going on abnormal. But so for about a year, my daughter was talking to me, or we would hang out, and periodically she'd say, "Mom, your breath stinks."
Okay.
And I would get a little offended.
Yeah.
And I would said, "Well, okay." She goes, "No, it's not like it's bad breath. It just has like a sick smell."
Okay.
And
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
I was like looking at some of the symptoms for gastric cancer, and like they were like stomach pain or feeling full after eating a small amount of food, or difficulty swallowing, bloating, nausea, heartburn. It kind of sounds like a Pepto-Bismol commercial, right? So it's like normally you wouldn't even think, you might think I just ate something wrong or something.
So with that being said, after I found out, I've always kind of had digestive issues with just my everyday life due to stress and just stuff. I would have stomach issues, and so I never thought anything. So for going on for like through a year, off and on, and it would go and it would come away, and then it would like disappear, and then she'd be like, "Okay, now it's back." And so I went to the dentist and I got my teeth checked, thinking maybe I had an infection.
Okay.
Nothing, everything turned out okay. So then she would tell me again, and I'd be like, I don't know what to say. And it would be like a death smell, she said. She's like, "It's horrible,
Really?
like horrible smell." And I said, okay. I said, "Well, I don't know. So
Now, would you be up close to her whenever, I mean, was it a hug kiss, or was it just like,
No.
in general, when you're talking, she's
Just
like, "Mom, I can smell your breath"?
Yeah, because we'd go work out, we'd
Yeah.
go running, we'd go hang
Yeah.
out. We're best friends, and we hang out all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so she would just tell me, like, just periodically. And so she goes, "Well, something's not right. Something's not right. You need to get it checked out." I go,
Wow.
"Well, what do I do? Go say I got bad
You know,
breath?"
she's kind of like an angel in this story,
Yeah, she
right?
really is.
I mean,
Yeah.
had she
Wow.
not been that observant,
Yeah.
the results could have been totally different.
Because you went to
Right.
the dentist, and the dentist said nothing of it. That would they just say, like, some people just have bad breath? I mean,
Well, they're like, "We don't see any reason why you would have bad breath." And probably by the time I got to the dentist, it was gone.
yeah,
And
okay. So it kind of came and went, like you said. So if
Yes.
it wasn't active, they were not going to know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So they didn't know, and they're like, "There's no infection. You have no issues going on." So, this went on, like I said, for on and off through about a year. And
Okay.
so I said, finally, I don't know, well, it was probably February. I said, "Maybe next time I'll go to the doctor whenever you smell it, and I'll try to get there whenever
Yeah.
it's in." So I did, and I went to just my regular doctor, and I told her, well, it was a male doctor, but there was like a nurse practitioner for the day, and so I told her, and so she's like, "Well, I don't know. Let's just send you to a GI specialist to get it checked out, just because it sounds like maybe it's something in your stomach or something if it's coming up through your breath."
Yeah.
So she did.
Okay.
And so I went to the GI specialist, and they found an ulcer, and they found some gallstones. And so she had done a sonogram. Well, she goes, "Let's just go ahead and test it and see what comes about, because you have some stuff in there that's, doesn't look major, but you got some stuff going on."
Okay.
So she went in and she did, let's see, when was it whenever she did the testing? It was like the second time I had gone, and so she went in and she did a biopsy. And
So was this like an endoscopy they did
Yes.
to do the biopsy?
Yeah.
Now, did you have to do a, what am I thinking? Gastro, did they do a
First she did the
Saline
sonogram.
test kind of thing, like
colonoscopy? Did they incorporate both of them? Okay.
No. So she did a
Sorry.
sonogram first and saw the
The lesions or the...
She saw the gallstones, and so
Okay.
she said, let's go ahead and do an endoscopy.
Okay.
That's what she did. And so after she saw the gallstones in the sonogram.
Okay.
So she went in, she did the camera, did the endoscopy. I come out, and she said, okay, so I see that you have an ulcer down there. She said, so I went ahead and biopsied it while I was in there, and we'll just wait on the results, but you do have an ulcer, so, we need to address that.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. So that was in April, and on so my daughter's birthday was April 20th, and I get a phone call from the doctor, and they're like, hey, we got your results in. We need you to come into the office tomorrow.
Ugh.
And I was like, well, it's my daughter's birthday. We're going out to dinner tonight, and we got plans tomorrow. Like, I'll come next week.
Okay.
That's what I said, because it was on a Thursday night, and we were going out for dinner.
Right.
And I said, I'll come next week.
So you had no worry at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not worried.
Okay.
And she was like, well, hold on a minute. Let me just check and make sure that that's okay, because she was wanting you to come in tomorrow.
Okay.
And I said, okay. So she comes back. She goes, yeah, the doctor said you need to come in tomorrow.
Okay.
I go, well, hold on. Now you got me nervous.
Right.
So can I just talk to the doctor?
Right.
And she said, well, hold on. Let me see if the doctor's available. She comes back. She goes, yeah, she's already in with a patient. She's like, she'll call you back.
Okay.
Well, during this, she had said, she had scheduled my time for tomorrow.
Right.
But I said, well, now you have me nervous, so let me see if I can talk to the doctor.
Right.
And so she did, and she said she'll call you back. She never called me back. So the next morning, so
You had to go all night long.
had to go all night. It was my daughter's birthday. I was
Right.
a nervous wreck, and of course, everybody, my parents were there, and everybody at dinner's like, it's fine. There's,
So they all knew that they wanted you in tomorrow, the next
Right.
day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were just trying to cheer you up and say, hey, let's be positive about this.
Yeah, nothing
Okay.
major's wrong.
Yeah.
Surely not. I go, well, I was nervous because I'm like, well, they want me tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I knew something was wrong, but I had no idea it was what it could possibly be. I
Right.
had no idea. I wasn't thinking cancer.
Right.
And so I didn't have a good meal. I was nervous all night.
Of course.
And wasn't a great night. So the next morning I get up and I go to the doctor, and I walk in, and she was like, well, I got in, and she said, well, I just want to tell you it's stomach cancer that you have.
Oh, my goodness.
She's like, so I couldn't come back to the phone and tell you
Yeah.
on the phone. I had to get you in the office. Of course, I just started crying.
Yeah.
And my whole world
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah. So many questions, so many things
Yeah.
had to be going through your head. Share with us, what was the first thing you thought of whenever she said stomach cancer? What was the first thing you thought of?
Oh, that I was dying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Did she give you a prognosis at that point? Did she try to
She
walk
didn't
you through
know.
it?
She didn't know what stage at that time because they hadn't measured the two. They didn't know anything.
Yeah.
They just knew it was cancerous.
She just knew that the biopsy came back and it was cancerous. So she was like, well, and so she starts talking to me about the steps and what we're going to have to do. And she actually gets me in that day, and I go straight from her office to the surgeon's office,
Wow.
which is very rare.
That's very
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
Right.
And so that doctor, my doctor Pursley, her name's Kimberly Pursley, she actually is at Presby Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so prior to this, I was going to a life group. And he was Greg Kerbel. And so
Okay.
he's a
I know
doctor.
Greg.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Kerbel.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And so, anyhow, I was at Dr. Pursley's office. She's with Presby. She sends me to the surgeon that day, and I talk to the surgeon, and he's like, oh, it's no big deal. We'll just go in, and we'll take, your stomach out, and we'll cut the this and that, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like,
And now you have, your eyes are like this big.
Check on my
yeah.
stomach.
what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know it sounds like a lot, but it's okay. Like, I do this all the time. And so, he makes me feel
Like
good
it's
about the
yeah,
situation,
right.
but I was scared to death
Of
and
course.
had no idea. And I was talking to him before I ever even talked to an oncologist. I had no idea what to expect
Right.
or what was happening. And so then I leave there with all this
Yeah. In your
unknowing.
head. Right.
I have no idea. And that was on a Friday. And I go to church on Sunday and talk to Greg. Or I'm not sure. I think I called Greg that day. And he said, you got to get to Baylor. We got to get you in for Baylor Oncology.
Yeah.
But you're with Presby. My group was with Presby. And they usually don't work together. So he ended up getting me with the Baylor of Dallas oncologist and got me right in.
Okay.
He's like, I'm going to get you in with the best doctor over there. And so I ended up seeing Dr. McCollum and Baylor. And so they worked together, the Baylor doctor and the Presby doctor. So I did chemo at Baylor, did my surgery later on eventually at Presby.
So they started chemo first before they did the surgery. Now, what was the reason for them not just going in and taking it out?
Well, that's what I said. Why can't we just take this out?
Right.
They're like, that's not the way life works.
It
You're like,
seems
but it
so
can.
logical.
Right.
That's what
yeah.
I said. Let's
Yeah.
just take the cancer out of my body.
Yeah.
Let's get it out.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, that's not the way that
Is it
works.
because the fear of it spreading once it's been exposed,
Yeah,
or
they wanna
I've heard
shrink
that?
it. They
Okay.
say, well, no, we need to try to shrink it.
Okay.
Medical terms.
Now that point though, you still didn't know what stage you're at. So, and from what I've learned, stage 3B, it's pretty aggressive, correct? If it's not caught in time, and the survival rate's not that great at
No.
all. Like
No.
I want to say, 33% is what I read.
33% past 5 years. But
Past
like
5 years.
if you make it to the 5-year mark.
Yeah, and if you're at stage 4, normally I think it said on there it was
Yeah, it's
pretty low.
Yeah.
Pretty low,
Yeah.
like less than 3%.
So
Yeah.
I know you're going through all this emotionally. What kept you going? Like, what was it that kept you going? That kept you? I know there's moments when you were probably just beside yourself, thinking about your children, your family.
Yeah.
What kept you going?
God,
Yeah,
my faith in God.
right.
Yeah. And
I bet
had
there was a big
peace.
prayer chain going at that point.
Huge.
Yes.
So that Sunday at church, I went to life group and I went to church, and my mom was in the audience, and Pastor Steve Stroop at the time came up to my mom out of the blue and asked her or said hello to her, and my mom said, I just found out my daughter was diagnosed with stomach cancer.
Wow.
And he gets up in front of the audience and prays for me over the whole church.
Wow.
That's-
And guys, if you don't know Lake Point Church, it's a massive church
it
for
is
Steve to do
massive.
that. Not that he wouldn't do it, but
Yeah.
that's definitely a God thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that with
No,
everyone. I mean, that
no.
don't just happen every day.
No, not at all. It was definitely a God thing for sure.
Yeah. And then went to life group, and I didn't get to hear it in the service that day, but then I went to life group because she goes to a different service than me.
Right.
And I went to life group, and then the whole class laid hands on me, prayed for me, and it was
Just an overwhelming
Those are powerful moments,
feeling,
though.
I'm certain. Just
yeah.
In those moments, you just feel so powerless. You just feel like, I don't have control over anything right now.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It makes you realize we have
Yeah.
no control over our life.
Yeah.
None.
so go through what the next steps were. You knew that you had to do chemo. How long was the chemo? How many treatments did you have to go through?
So I had to do chemo for 3 months, and it would consist of I would go do my chemo. So at the time, I was already kind of small.
You're tiny
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
And so,
You're so small. Yeah.
so I was already thin, and my doctor was like, okay, I got to pump you up with some weight.
Yeah.
Because you're about to have chemo, and then you're going to have surgery, and so I got to get some weight on you. So he pumped me up with all kinds of steroids, and I ended up gaining maybe 15 pounds before I had surgery,
Okay.
which is abnormal for chemo because
Right.
you're usually pretty sick.
Yeah.
And but I didn't throw up one time.
Wow.
He kept me, so I don't know what he did, but I would have to go and get like shots 7 days after. So I'd have chemo for 2 days. So I'd go for all the bad stuff, and then he'd send me for like 7 days straight to get shots every day afterwards to keep me from being sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was proactive, where a lot of
Yeah.
people get
Yes.
this really horrible feeling afterwards where they're nauseous, they're sick all the time, they don't want to eat.
Right.
And you didn't have those symptoms specifically?
I mean, I did, but no, I was eating well.
Yeah.
I still had nauseous and I didn't ever vomit.
Okay.
That's good. Well,
So
that's good.
that's
Seeing
real
as we're
good.
dealing with a stomach issue, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Right. I never vomited the whole time, which was amazing.
So as they're doing this chemo, the chemo was 3 months, like you said, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And how many treatments was that within that 3 month period?
I did, let's see. So I went I would go for a week, and then I would get a 2 week break.
Okay.
And then I would go for a week.
Okay.
So every third week I was going.
So quite aggressive, pretty quick, a lot of chemo. And then you get to the point of surgery. Mm-hmm. What are they saying to the point when you get up to surgery?
So I got finished with the chemo. Sorry.
You're good.
And then I got to take a break.
Okay.
So I could heal a little bit.
Right.
And get some strength.
Right.
For the surgery. So
Right.
I got like maybe a 6 week or break, I think. I can't remember exactly, but I got a break to heal and get a little strength in me. And I had surgery, so it was scheduled in July. Mm-hmm. And basically, they just, that surgeon had explained his surgery to me to where he's going to go in. And I was going to have to remove partial, like 50% of my stomach is what they told me.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm like, okay. And so he just said it was no big deal. He does it all the time, this and that. Well, so then it was surgery time, came surgery time. The day of surgery, I get to the hospital. He pulls me in and he says, hey, I pulled out your charts night before.
Of course.
Or morning of.
Yeah.
And I was reviewing them. And it looks a little worse than what I was thinking. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? So before my surgery, they said, hey, we did your scans and it's looking really good. We didn't really see a lot. And so we're like, okay, so no surgery? They're like, oh, no, you still have surgery. But the scans, we couldn't see the tumor on the CT scan that they had. Well, then I get to surgery and he says, hey, I looked it over from the original scan, from my original CT scan.
Right.
Where they do I guess they measure
all the
to
diagnosis,
know, and how much to take out whenever they're in there in the surgery. And so he said, we're going to have to take out probably 70% of your stomach, not 50%. We're going to have to take out more. Now you're going to have a feeding tube. And I was panicking because I didn't think I was going to have a feeding
So this was
tube.
the morning of surgery. You're finding out
surgery.
that you're having not just 50%, but 70% of your stomach removed, a feeding tube. Mm-hmm. What was going on in your head?
Oh, I was on the table about to go back to surgery when he tells me this. I'm like, what? I'm boo-hooing. So Brent, my husband at the time, went out, got my parents. They came in, and everybody's praying over me. And, it's an emotional time.
Of course.
And I had friends at the hospital. It was early in the morning. It was 5 in the morning because surgery was scheduled first thing.
Right.
And I was just a nervous wreck. And so I was like, well, okay. I didn't have any choice, but that was what was given to me.
And listening to your story, and one thing we were just talking about is how you kind of figure out you don't have control over anything, or that you feel very powerless. What was it like for you? Because you're a strong woman, you've run a business, you've done all these things. How do you just let people help you? How do you just open up and realize, I need help. I need people to be here for me. I can't do this on my own.
Yeah, well, I relied on God. I had wonderful friends that would come. We would pray the whole time during my chemo and throughout the process of my diagnosis and during my sickness. And we would they would come and pray with me, pray over me. And I had a peace through the whole time.
Wow.
That was indescribable.
Yeah.
And without God, you just would not be able to have it. And I can't even describe it. But it was like I was just peaceful, even knowing that I might be dying or not knowing the outcome
of the surgery and everything.
I was just at peace with I was at peace.
Was it hard for you to let people help you in all areas of your life?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I know Kim. And Kim is the go-getter.
Yeah.
She's the one that makes things happen, the mover and shaker. So I'm listening to you ask these questions, and I'm thinking, how were you? How did you rely on people to help you?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Because I just like to do things myself.
Yes,
And
exactly.
take care of things. I mean,
You know, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that must have been
Very hard. I
quite
mean,
the
in
change.
addition to just this is life-changing, right? And all of these things, but then to know that it's just you're completely powerless. You have to let people help you. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So
And
crazy.
knowing that you just give your life to God at that time, knowing, I mean, not that I hadn't ever given my life to God, but I had, but knowing during that time that, hey, you're maybe going to not be here anymore.
Yeah, this is a real life situation where
Yeah.
you're really having to lean on a higher power to get you through it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think about what was going through. So you wake up from surgery, they removed what 75% of your stomach,
Yeah.
and how were you feeling?
Well, I wake up from surgery and my ex-husband, Brent, is standing there at the bed and he's in tears.
Oh,
And he said, your tumor, there was no trace of the cancer.
What?
No trace. The tumor was gone. I go, what? And of course, I'm, dopey and
yeah.
just waking up. And he was like, the tumor was gone. Like, they didn't have to take out that much of your stomach like they thought they were.
That's
Wow.
incredible.
They
Oh my
only
gosh.
took out where they had to, so I didn't have to have a feeding tube. I didn't have to get 75% of it taken out. They only had to end up doing the 50%. And the doctor said, I've never seen this. Like, this has never happened.
I just got cold chills.
I know. I am just in awe of the miracle. Like
Yeah.
the miracle. Like people don't always believe in miracles, but they're there.
They
They're
are
there.
I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
And he said, the doctor said it didn't happen. And he's like, well, I mean,
it did happen.
it did happen.
And I'm the
it's
living
because
proof of
my
it.
Wife.
Yeah.
Like, that's what
Yeah.
he said. Like, you don't know my wife and her, like, faith in God.
Yeah.
And it was, the doctor could not find the tumor. It was gone. So it was like a true miracle day.
That is such a true miracle. I'm
Yeah.
just in awe right
I
now.
know.
I was expecting her to give me the story, and now I'm like, oh, wow.
So
That's so amazing.
you find this out. What an amazing result, right?
Yeah. And I was excited. I was like, okay, good. No more chemo.
She's up running laps, y'all. She's like, let's go for a run. Let's eat.
And I don't have to have chemo. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, you do.
Oh, so you did. You still had to follow with chemo.
So I did
You
have
got
to
to
do
finish
that.
the regimen. Yeah.
Okay. And so how much more chemo did you
So-
have to have after that?
I had to finish the whole, the
whole
same-
series?
Yeah.
Okay.
mhm.
Okay.
But so, I still had to, I did. I got up the very next day and I started walking. I mean, immediately. I got out of the bed because I couldn't leave the hospital until, you have
You're
all
like,
these
I'm out of
things.
here.
And they're like, you're going to have to be here probably 12 days. And I was like, I am not going to be here 12 days.
That's the Kim I know, y'all.
Yeah, I am not going to be here 12
That's
days.
kind of what I guessed.
Yeah.
So, did they ever kind of figure out what might have been a trigger or a cause of this cancer? Because it's kind of rare in your age, and yeah.
Very rare. That's okay. So whenever the doctor, no, they didn't know. They did not understand. They said usually it's in older Asian men.
Yeah.
A lot. For me, a 43-year-old female, they said this is very abnormal,
Yeah.
not normal at all. They were shocked because I had stomach cancer.
Wow.
So if we kind of go back to maybe some of the things in your life, was there a lot of stress? Was there any kind of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, any of those kinds of things?
There was a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Probably starting at about the age of 18, 19. I had a lot of stress.
I was just reading some of the research, and why they can't find a direct link of stress and cancer, it definitely can progress an illness. It can cause a lot of difficulty in recovery. And there is some research that says maybe it can kind of activate these things. So do you feel like since then you've changed some things about the stress in your life, or is there anything that you do different to control it?
Yeah, I try to stay a bit more calm and live a more stress-free life, and I do try to do that.
But life will throw you some wrinkles sometimes.
Yeah, it will.
Do you handle them in a different way than maybe you handled them prior to cancer?
Yeah, I probably do. I try to, I guess, remove myself out of the situations rather than continuing maybe to stay involved in situations.
Does it kind of get you to pick your battles a little differently? Like
Yeah.
some things you're just not going to fight about. You're just going to
Yeah.
let them go.
Yes.
Yeah. What about the trauma that you went through? Because there's a lot of emotional trauma in this story. I can imagine that you still have effects of trauma.
Yeah, like I'm thinking the first thing that comes to my mind is, let's say before you have that surgery, are you thinking about the difficult conversations you're sitting down and having with your children? Or what are the conversations your children had with you of, hey, Mom, how bad is this? You know, I mean, how hard was that?
It was hard whenever I called both of my kids to the hospital the day that I found out. And they came to the surgeon's office. So they get to listen to the surgeon. So that was nice.
Yeah.
My parents came. As soon as, basically whenever I was in there with the doctor, Brent had gone outside and called my brother and my parents and told them. And so they came up to the hospital, and by the time, we didn't know we were going to get to see the surgeon, but by the time we got to see the surgeon, they were there, and then my daughter came. My son was in school, so he was still in high school. He didn't get to come.
So I can imagine them coming up there, but then you've got not only the stress of a diagnosis, but also then the stress of, you know, as mamas, we never stop worrying about our babies.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm sure you're thinking in your head, the stress that you're putting your children under had to have been more stressful for you as well. So you've just got stress on top of stress.
Yeah.
And you just relied on your faith to get you through this?
Yeah. And then my thought was, okay, I was worried about never seeing my grandkids. Like, I'm not going to even be able to enjoy my grandchildren.
These are things that I wish people really kind of understood better, because this process that you have to go through is not just based on one singular moment of an illness. It's all these things are flashing in your head.
Yeah, all
your
these
whole
flashing.
life is flashing before you on, you know, your last words, your last moments. What are you going to do next? I mean, I can't imagine. Just cannot imagine the world you were dealing with. Go ahead.
Do you have any trauma symptoms from that? Do you have any nightmares? Do you have any, stress, or wake up at night thinking about it, or comes back and feels like it's a real situation again?
About the cancer? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't really have nightmares thinking, but that's a big fear that I probably will forever have, is the fear of cancer coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you hear if it comes back, it's really aggressive, and it's probably going to be fatal. And so it's a thought that lingers forever, I guess.
Yeah. How do you deal with that in your everyday life?
It gets emotional, and whenever you hear of somebody going through it and talking about it, it is very emotional. So I am more sensitive, and I'll just maybe cry.
Sometimes that's the best medicine.
Sometimes I just cry.
Yeah, and sometimes that's okay. That's very okay to get it out.
I used to never cry. I used to be really tough.
You're
now
still
I
tough.
cry all the time.
Yeah, tears do not mean you're not tough. It means
No.
you're dealing with the emotions.
And I think
really.
it's good
That's
for your
what it
body
is.
too.
Yeah.
You
It
got to
is.
release
You gotta
it.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
have to.
if you're holding it in, it can't be good for you,
No,
right?
It
Right.
can't. Did you ever get any counseling, any mental health help, anyone to kind of talk this process through?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done lots of counseling.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
lots.
Love to hear that.
Yep.
So we talk about this. What is the new Kim like? What does life look like for Kim? How often do you go in for checkups now? How often do you make sure that your health is still thriving?
Every 3 months I go for checkups.
Okay, so every 3 months. Okay.
So I still have to do that due to just like anemia and for the doctor just to check my weight and make sure that everything is still good.
Okay. Well, I think that just being proactive. What's the best advice you can give people that maybe, because a fluke thing, your daughter tells you, "Mom, your breath stinks."
That's what I was just thinking.
Me too.
And you think about this is a thing these days: is see something, say something.
Yeah.
This is so important. See something, say something, hear something. Say something to somebody. Don't keep it inside, because there have been stories just like yours where maybe someone saw a lump on someone's neck on the TV and they called in like a news anchor or something, and then found out they had thyroid cancer or something. So see something, say something, and in your daughter's case, hear something. So, or smell something, know. And so I think it's really important for us to be advocates for each other, and don't be scared to say those hard things, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
And to know, though, that just Kim staying with it to go, okay, I got to get this checked out.
Yeah.
She went through the process of getting it checked out.
Instead of getting it just offended, saying, my daughter thinks my breath smells, she's like, okay, I'm going to listen
can be cruel.
to this.
They can be so cruel sometimes. But
because that's your first instinct.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'm sorry. What do I do?
Go to the dentist.
So she was my angel.
I was 100%. I can see that. I mean, she's definitely got wings for sure.
Yeah. And so it's really funny because on my phone, I would have her name was programmed in my phone, and it's Brittany. Purple heart had just purple hearts. You know how you have your emojis? Well, her name was that with purple hearts.
Oh, wow.
And so then I found out I have the cancer, and my cancer color is purple. So my phone would ring, and it would say, Brittany, purple heart, purple heart, purple heart. I'm like, she's my angel.
Yeah.
She saved my life.
Yeah.
And it was just a correlation of it going together.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing because I'm like, without her staying on me and being proactive to tell me,
wow,
I would not have checked it. And then it would be to stage 4, and it would have been all over my body.
Well, I'm going to give Brittany a shout out because
Way
Brittany,
to go, Brittany.
Yeah, way to be the voice, even when sometimes we don't want to hear the things that could be upsetting. She stayed on top of Mom.
A strong mama raised a strong girl.
She did, and God was on top of that too. So we are so thankful that you came to share your story with us, and we are so glad that you're surviving and thriving because she's absolutely gorgeous.
She is beautiful.
She's a thriving woman, and she's a fighter. So we're thankful that you shared your story. Guys, I hope you listen to this and realize that the most common symptoms may not be the most to diagnose something. It may be just someone's breath smelling when it comes to something like this. So I hope that people really listen to this, apply it, and don't be afraid to say something.
And please be an advocate for cancer research. If you have the means, please give to these organizations to help build research and continue to fight cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stomach Cancer Awareness Month is in November.
Yes. So thank you. Is there anybody you want us to plug in for you, or is there anybody that you want to plug in for donations?
I have a research that I'll do, and I'll post it usually on Facebook. And
please share
that
us.
with us so we can share it with our followers. That way we can help try to raise money for the cause.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And also to all of our listeners out there, Kim is actually working on a bio book about her life and her struggles, what she went through. Go ahead and kind of tell us a little bit about what you're writing on, your memoir.
Well, I'm going to be writing on survivorship and basically things to do to help others, help other women, and how to get through it and survive.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Knowing Jesus and leaning on him. And
that's amazing. And as we get more details, we're going to make sure to post that on our social media so that we can, drive people to your book.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Good deal.
All right. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.